Hello and welcome to what is our third Diageo Bar Academy live webinar. My name is Matt Guest and I'm absolutely delighted to be asked back for a second time to host this with you. The subject that we've got is all about menus, but for those of you who aren't aware fully of what Diageo Bar Academy is, essentially it's a training program for bartenders, managers and servers. We're there to educate, inspire and inform and essentially try and drive your career on to the next level. And over the 4 or 5 years that we've been running Bar Academy, we've trained somewhere in the region, somewhere in the excess of, I think it's around 400,000 bartenders. So it's an incredible project to be part of. And this is a great forum for us to get together and try and share things on a wider scale. So like I've said, today's session is about menus, and actually if you've got the time and you can get hold of the menu from your venue, then it will be really useful for you. You can go through and tick off and make notes on there as we go through some of the principles that we're going to be covering. We do have an agenda for today, so we're going to cover the role of the menu and how to use it. We're going to cover how to create great menus, and what we're going to focus on there really is some real cutting edge insight into the way that people behave in bars and the way that they read menus and how we can tap into that. We're going to talk about how to make some drinks on a menu, and we're going to talk about how to effectively use the menus in venue. Now, during this webinar, we will be making drinks. We have put a menu together. We're going to take you through step by step. And you will actually have the opportunity to download this menu at the end if you're a member of DiageoBarAcademy.com. So, more on that later. One thing to remember is that this is live, if you can't tell, and we do have the opportunity to connect. So on here I can see any questions that you've already posed on social media, or any questions that you want to put into Vimeo Live, so you can use the chat function, and then any questions come through here and we can try and answer them as we're going. So, first things first, why menus? Why talk about menus? Well, the role of a menu, essentially, I think, is to grow your venue's sales, okay? It's to provide inspiration, whilst also allowing your customers to make really quick and informed decisions. So, what it's not is a list of everything that you sell, because that's not helpful. That's a price list, it's not a menu. Actually, what a menu should be is a really well thought out, curated selection of drinks that you want to sell. Okay, and you want to sell them for a few reasons. You want to sell them because they make your venue more money. That would be smart. But also you want to sell them because it's probably what you do best. Because then actually the benefits of putting together a menu like that are twofold. The guest in your bar gets a recommendation of what you do really well, and actually then you get to sell the things that make you most money. So in an ideal world, that's what I think a menu is about, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. We know that people only look at a menu for a really short amount of time, and also there's an opportunity for menus to be in two places. So menus to be at the bar, and also for menus to be at the table, because we know that when people make decisions on what to drink, they make decisions in those two places. They make a decision at the bar and at the table. So when it's at the bar, that gives me as the bartender the opportunity to use the menu, to recommend and make suggestions. But actually at the table as well, it gives the server the opportunity to do exactly the same. So there's some kind of kick-off principles, if you like. It does depend actually though on the occasion. So using a menu can vary depending on the occasion. Now I'm going to just talk about 3 occasions really quickly. So the first one is a really relaxed and informal occasion. And the role of the menu then really is about providing inspiration about new drinks ideas whilst making it really easy for people to choose. Another occasion could be a special occasion or a more formal occasion. And the role of the menu varies a little bit there because people do spend a little bit more time looking at it. Your descriptions can probably be a little bit more verbose. And the reason for that is at a special occasion, people using the menu are often ordering not just for themselves, but also maybe for other people as well. So the role of the menu is slightly different in that occasion. And then the final occasion is the occasion that's really high tempo. So this could be late night, it could be a nightclub, it's usually darker, It's usually very busy. And actually the role of the menu is still to provide inspiration and suggestions, but from a design perspective, think about the colour of text, the colour of the background. It needs to be really easy to read, probably less words, more images. So depending on the occasion can depend on what you decide to do with a lot of the information that we're going to pass on in the next 40 minutes or so. So I'm going to stop talking for a second and I'm going to introduce you to my co-host, colleague and friend, Marios. How you doing, Marios?
Hi everybody, hi Matt, and
Welcome.
thank you.
Do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely, I'm absolutely delighted to be here to start with. I have a background in bartending and an academic background in design. So for the past decade or so, I've been writing, developing and designing quite a few menus.
Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely love making menus.
And why do you think menus are important?
Menus are important for a few reasons. From the perspective of the bartender, the menu is an advertising tool as well as an efficiency tool. It also, a menu leaves you a lasting impression about the venue, which is really important. And I personally believe that first impressions matter, and the menu, the drinks menu, it's something that the guest will first experience or see when they visit a bar or the bar's website or even the bar's social media pages.
Okay, and what are we going to be doing today then?
Today, we're going to be making drinks from this beautiful menu here. It's a seasonally influenced menu. It consists of 5 winter-inspired drinks. However, we're going to be discussing how we can tweak those drinks and adjust them to fit the right season.
Okay, super. Okay, so Marios has mentioned a couple of things there about seasonality, and embracing seasonal menus actually is a great way not only to keep your bar kind of on top of the new trends that are happening and give your bartenders new ingredients, seasonal ingredients to kind of be playing with, but it also taps into a few other things, doesn't it? It taps into the guests' interest in eating more ethically, eating things that are in season. It also gives you the opportunity to work more closely with your suppliers and with local farms and kind of the wider food community. And I guess finally, the other reason why seasonality should be of interest is if you do buy in season, then generally you're buying produce that's cheaper.
Yeah.
If you buy out of season, it's generally going to cost you more. So it can have an impact on your bottom line. So there's 3 key areas there of why we think seasonal menus are quite important. So before we crack on and before we start making the first drinks, we'd like to pose our first kind of question to you all and get you to write in an answer. So the question is, do you offer a seasonal menu already? And if you do, what time of year do you offer it? So whilst you guys are thinking and typing, I'm going to hand you over to Marios, who's going to take us through the first drink.
Amazing. The first drink is a really simple highball drink. We call it Smirnoff Apple Highball, and it's simply a combination of vodka, a tiny amount of lemon juice, apple juice, and lemonade.
Okay, super.
Really easy to recreate. We're going to start by filling up the glass with ice all the way to the top. And if you want to see more tips about ice and dilution, you can click on our previous webinar and have a look at this because we've further discussed this. So I'm going to be adding 25 mils of Smirnoff vodka. Sorry, excuse me, 50. So a double measure of Smirnoff vodka. Fantastic. There we go.
Good.
And now this step is optional. I'm going to be adding 5 ml, the equivalent of a teaspoon or a bar spoon of lemon juice.
Okay.
If you like bright citrus, sour flavors, go for it. If you don't, just omit that step. I just feel it makes the drinks more refreshing and it brings up a bit of a flavor, yeah? So 5 mils, I'm going to just eyeball this one. Just the equivalent of a teaspoon.
Yep.
Bit more ice. Always good to have loads of ice in a glass. And we simply top up with equal amounts of lemonade and apple juice.
Okay.
Now the nice thing about this drink is that if, let's say, you don't want to create an autumnal, wintry version like this one,
Yep.
you could substitute the apple juice for, let's say, strawberry juice or more summery juice or even a tropical style juice, and essentially just create a different drink. Delicious, really easy to make. There you go. Now the garnish, in this case the equivalent garnish, the appropriate garnish is apple and lemon. If we were using strawberry juice or peach juice, we'd use something different, something more fruity and summery.
Yep.
So I'm gonna add a wedge of lemon and a slice of green apple.
Super, looks cool. Is there any tips around keeping apple super fresh looking?
Yeah, what I've done with this one is, first of all, obviously, cut everything fresh. Yeah, it tastes better, has more aroma. But what you could do is put some lemon juice and some water and just steep the apple in it.
Okay.
Yes. The ascorbic acid in the lemon preserves the color of the apple.
I'll let you go first because I've got cold.
Thank you, sir.
You try, and then I'll have a little try.
Amazing.
We've got some answers coming through.
Delicious.
So we've got Anna who says, we normally provide menus alongside seasons, so summer, festive for Christmas and winter menus. So I guess that's what we're suggesting. We've got someone else that's saying Christmas menus as well. We've got Darren who's saying that they offer 3 seasonal menus per year. We change it regularly due to suppliers and sourcing. So it sounds like we're preaching to the converted out there, but maybe if you're not converted, then you can see there are other people actually doing the same thing. May I?
Yes, sir. Cheers.
Okay.
Cheers. Okay.
Cheers. Okay.
What's next?
So what we're going to do now is look at some, I guess, first principles when it comes to design of menus. And the first one is keep it manageable. Now, to be honest, I know that we're talking about seasonal menus, but this could apply to permanent menus too. Too many times do I go out, and I'm sure you're the same, where you go out and you see lists of 20, 30, even 40 drinks on a menu. And it's clear that not all of the bar team are capable of making them all as consistently as each other. And actually, from a management perspective, you're giving yourself a real kind of nightmare and headache, particularly if you have a high turnover of staff as well. There's a constant training effort needs to be put into that consistency. So our first bit of recommendation would be keep it manageable, keep it simple. And as if you want to have a rough guess or a rough limit on the amount of drinks, we'd say maybe 10 at the most. Some of the best menus that you've seen have what?
4 to 8.
4 to 8. There you go. Okay, so
especially seasonal menus.
Especially seasonal menus. Okay, so the first tip is keep it manageable.
Yeah, the second tip would be to consider the equipment available at the bar. So for example, we need to be realistic, we need to be reasonable about this. If we don't have a sink, we shouldn't be focusing on a cocktail menu full of shaken or stirred cocktails.
Sure.
Instead, we should include built cocktails, like some of the cocktails we're going to be making afterwards. Another thing would be to consider ice, the types of ice available, or glassware, the quantities that we need, and the types of glassware, of course.
Okay, so third on our little list here is opportunity cost. Now, by opportunity cost, what we mean is taking into account the time that it takes to make the drink, not just the cost of the ingredients. Because, and I'll give you an example, if I put a drink on my menu and it costs £10, but it takes 4 minutes to make, from a management perspective, I'd be thinking, well, how many large Tanqueray and tonics could I make in the same time period? And would I take more than £10? So what I'm not saying is don't serve cocktails. What I'm saying is make sure that the cocktails that you do decide to put on that menu are time efficient, and not only can your fastest bartenders produce them in a good time, but also your newest and less experienced bartenders can produce it in a reasonable time, so that you don't incur an opportunity cost.
Yes.
Okay.
The next tip would be to consider the quality of different ingredients and consider using seasonal ingredients, and of course supporting local producers, local suppliers. There are a few benefits to that. First of all, like you mentioned earlier, just to reiterate, seasonal ingredients usually taste better, and they usually cost less to produce. They require less energy to be produced. So what happens is that our overall cost for the drink is lower, and we boost our profit. Yeah, and the other thing is, of course, that seasonal ingredients often resonate really well with some of the guests. Yeah, it's kind of a trend, and you offer something that it gives you, let's say, an advantage over other bars that are not using seasonal ingredients.
Cool, okay. And then the fifth one from this is just make sure, and this might seem like the dullest one out of all of them, but that you've actually costed out the menu. If you're going to put lots of effort into trying to really drive sales through 5 or 6 drinks, you need to make sure that those drinks actually are bringing you in a profit that you want. Now, in a very simple calculation, you want to be able to work out the cost of the ingredients and take it away from the selling price. Now, actually, you can probably do a little bit more than that, and there is a calculator on Diageo Bar Academy.com. If you click on Business of Bars and follow it through, you'll see something that you can click on called a profit calculator. On that calculator, you can select your currency, you can select your VAT tax amount, and you can pick all the ingredients and start to calculate what the margin is on some of the drinks that you're hoping to put through. So
Really valuable for all the bar managers out there that are struggling with spreadsheets at the moment.
yes, yeah, this is super easy to use.
Yeah.
So okay, so moving on then, what we'd like to take you through is some, and I love this content. It's cutting edge. It's based on a book by a guy called Richard Thaler. He wrote a book called Nudge. He actually won the Nobel Prize for Economics. He's a behavioral economist, and he identified some ways that people behave, which actually we have the opportunity to tap into and use within our menu design. And it works on a really simple idea. Okay, this sounds technical, but it's super simple. So the idea is that your brain, the human brain, has two systems. Okay, you've got system one, and system one is uncontrolled, it's effortless, it's emotional, and it's fast. As a percentage of our day, how much, as a percentage, do you think we spend in system one?
I'll cheat because you told me before. I think it's 98%, isn't it?
It's most of our waking life is in this system one. We're just kind of getting on with things. If you drive a car, you're probably in system one. You set off and you arrive and you're not quite sure of how you got there. And that's all system one taking over. And then you've got system two, and system two is reflective, it's controlled, it's effortful, it's deductive, and it's slow. So, what we shouldn't probably do is aim our menus at system two, but we do. We assume for some reason that people are going to come into our bar, meet, they've not seen each other for a while, sit down in silence and study a menu and start at the top corner and read every ingredient and every description. It's just not how it happens, is it?
No.
Not how it happens in the on-trade. Actually, what...
People don't act like that in bars. No.
People don't
They
act
go
like
there
that.
to relax, yeah.
Yeah, and they're chatting to people, and whilst chatting, they're glancing at the menu and chatting, and then someone comes to take the order, and they order under some kind of pressure, and they make a really effortless choice. So really, they choose in system one. So how do we engineer menus to tap into system one? And that's the crux of what we're going to take you through today, really. So the first thing that we need to tackle, and it's a big one, and we've touched on it already, is something called choice overload. Yeah. And choice, I mean, it goes without saying, choice overload is someone opening a menu, being dazzled by the amount on offer, and then defaulting to a more common order, something like a beer or a wine it might be. So actually there's an opportunity to get them to focus in on something really quickly, and we'd like to take you through a couple of ways that can be done. The first one is something called championing one drink. Now, we've made it quite obvious on this menu how that's done. It can be done by making the image of the drink that you want to sell bigger. It can be boxing a drink out. It could be changing the font, it could be changing the colours that are used, but it's highlighting one drink that you want to sell. So that's championing one drink, okay?
In this case, the winter special, yeah?
In this case, this one here, yeah. Or this one here, it depends on which one you're looking at. So the next thing is something called the messenger effect. So the messenger effect is all about how much more powerful a message is depending on who it's given by.
Yeah.
So if you want health advice, if I was to give you health advice...
You wouldn't take it from me?
I wouldn't take it from you, but I'd take it from a doctor. Because a doctor is the authority when it comes to health, yeah? Now when it comes to drinks, who's the authority in a bar? Well, it's the bartender or it's the server. So actually a well-placed recommendation by you as the bartender or you as the server holds incredible weight, and that can be replicated on a menu by drawing out a little arrow to something saying bartender's favourite or server's favourite. Really easy to do, and actually when someone's really undecided and they're scanning through a menu and they read that message, that can be the thing that gets them to order that drink. And then finally, within this choice overload section, you've got something called creating a social norm. A social norm is basically telling people what you do well and what most people enjoy in your bar. Now, at its easiest, that could be done by drawing a little line to something and saying, this is our bestseller. Because actually, if I'm scanning through a menu and I'm not sure what to order, but something says this is our bestseller, that gives me a huge amount of confidence that it must be good. And I can tell you a number of stories of restaurants that I've been to that have got minimal amount of choices, and someone's taken the opportunity to say, this is our best seller, it's been on our menu for 10 years, I mean, that's the thing I'm going to order because it must be good.
It makes your life so much easier, doesn't it?
It makes my life so much easier. So, little question for you guys at home. What's the most popular cocktail in your outlet and why do you think that is? While you guys are doing that, I'm going to hand you over to Marios, who's going to take you through the next drink, which is
Johnny Walker Ginger Highball. Similar in the fact that it's also a highball. So we start with a nice highball glass. Fill this up with ice. And what we add next is some Johnny Walker Black Label.
Super.
So 50 ml of Johnny Walker Black Label. Oops.
Nice.
That's some spilling.
Good pour.
Good pour.
That's how they can tell it's live.
Exactly. And then we're going to be serving this with a Christmassy spiced ginger ale. So ginger ale and Scotch whiskey, match made in heaven, in my opinion. But in this case, we're using a ginger ale that's flavored with cinnamon and clementine.
Okay.
Flavors associated with the festive season. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm going to be topping up with our ginger ale. And I'll add a simple garnish of a citrus wedge. It could be anything. It really comes down to personal preference. I think that orange suits this drink really well. But if you want to use clementine, go for it. If you want to use lime or lemon, also really good choices as well.
If you wanted to use a twist, is a twist okay?
A twist or a zest, absolutely, absolutely. It would add even more aroma to it.
Okay, cool. Do I get to try it first? In fact, no, you try first because I've got cold.
Yes,
and I'll try
I forgot.
Okay, and what about twisting this for other seasons? Is this a twistable drink for other seasons?
It's a 2-ingredient drink, so it doesn't give us that much freedom for like tweaking it. However, you could use a more, let's say, summery soda during the summer, and go all out on the garnish. Add a bit something more summery, like strawberries or a summer fruit or a spring fruit, or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Or even, now that I'm thinking about it, even like a peach bitters, like a couple of dashes of peach bitters or something that would add loads of flavor at a small quantity. You don't want to mess too much with the highball.
Okay.
Just 2 ingredients, yeah?
Okay, cool. Okay, so, thanks Marios. You take that now.
I'll have another sip if you don't mind.
Help yourself. So, so our next kind of set of principles, if you like, all fall under a category which is called the order effect. And essentially what this is about not putting drinks in price order. Because if you do, then actually the temptation is I kind of look at you and I think, right, what's he worth? I look down the list and I find a price that I'm comfortable with and that's then what I order. Yeah. So actually the opportunity here is to disrupt that behavior and actually put your drinks not in price order, actually randomize the order. And linked to that is another principle which is about, it's called anchoring. And what you tend to do is you anchor with a high number first and then randomize the order underneath it. And what anchoring does, and I'll give you an example like totally out of our industry. There's a book called Mind Over Money. And actually what they talk about there is they talk about various ways that retail gets us to do this very thing. And the example that I was thinking of is they were talking about selling computers and there's a cheaper computer and a mid-range computer. And on their own, they would absolutely sell more of the cheaper computer. So what they do is they introduce a third computer that they expect not to sell, that's priced probably too high, but what it does is it moves people from ordering the cheaper one onto the one that they actually want to sell.
Makes the middle option look more appealing.
It makes it look more appealing. So think about how you do that with your menus. An obvious thing here is wine, but actually within the spirit world, think about bottle serve. Maybe there's a huge 5-litre Ciroc that you would anchor with, and then the 70 centilitre Ciroc that sits underneath it seems like much better value if you did it that way. So they're the two things under order effect. So randomize the order and then anchor with a high number. Make sense? Okay.
What's next?
What's next? Next drink.
Flat white martini.
Let's do it.
So this is a twist on, you could call it a wintry Christmassy twist on the ever popular espresso martini.
Yep.
This one requires a shaker. So we're going to start by building the drink in a small part of the shaker. We'll start with 25 ml of espresso that's freshly brewed, but it has left to cool down.
Sure.
So 25 ml. Beautiful.
And is there a particular reason why this time you're using this type of shaker rather than
You could use either the glass one or this one. I happen to prefer this one, first of all, because it's lighter. In my opinion, it makes a more inviting noise for the guest. They can hear like bartenders shaking drinks from far away. And also it has what we call a lower thermal mass. It means that it takes less energy, actually it melts less ice, so in order to chill the vessel, comparatively to the glass, let's say, equivalent, yeah?
Okay, good.
So overall, less dilution, more control over dilution.
Right.
So 25 mils of espresso coffee. The next ingredient is simply 25 mils of Smirnoff vodka.
Yep.
There we go. And that's the protagonist of the drink, 50 ml of Baileys, which is a cream liqueur, and in my opinion, it's synonymous to Christmas. Yeah?
Yep.
That's why it should always appear in festive drink menus, Baileys.
Or even after dinner.
Or even after dinner.
menu,
This is a
all year
delicious,
round,
luscious dessert cocktail.
Yep.
And it satisfies your, when you crave like something sweet, that's the best option.
Just while you're finishing that off, Marios, there's people have answered our question from earlier. So just as a reminder, we asked what was the most popular cocktail in your outlet. I'm going to try and do this while you're shaking. We've had a few answers. So one of the answers was Porn Star Martini. I think they're popular everywhere at the moment, particularly in the UK.
Yeah.
You're going to wait for me to finish, aren't you?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Darren has said Skyball. Customers love them. Lewis has said sour types. John Stern has said Irish Martini. I'm assuming that's got Irish whiskey in it as a gas. And then Tim says Espresso Martini, really popular at the moment.
Well, speaking of Espresso Martini,
I'll get your glass.
thank you.
There's no rushing it, is there?
No. There is no way around this. There is no cutting corners. We should shake for, I'd say, at least 12 to 15 seconds, and it has to be a nice vigorous shake so we get that beautiful creamy top you expect from an espresso martini.
Yep.
So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my Hawthorne strainer and fine strainer so I can double strain the drink, making sure that no ice shards will find their way into our cocktail.
Excellent.
It's a bit more labor intensive as a drink, but it's worth it. Amazing. There we go.
And then what about garnish? What are the options for garnishing?
It's a really simple garnish, the same garnish with the espresso martini. We could use some coffee beans and just lay them over on the surface of the drink.
Sure.
Like that. Or if you want to go all out, you could even use, let's say, some cacao powder or even coffee powder and create a stencil, maybe in a shape. There you have it.
Super.
I've had quite a few of those in the past, so
I can just
you
dive
can go
in.
ahead and dive in.
I just don't want to get stuck in my beard and then be on
Yeah,
camera.
that's the challenge, isn't it? You didn't think about this. It's yours.
Okay.
You're okay, yeah.
Okay, so, oh, that's delicious.
Amazing.
That's really good. Okay, so another one of our principles. We want to talk to you a little bit now about design and messaging. So, one of the problems that a lot of guests have when they go into a bar and they're faced with a cocktail menu or drinks that they might not be familiar with is they're unsure of actually what are they going to look like when it arrives. And we could be talking here just as simply as indicating what glass the drink's going to come in. That gives guests that aren't familiar with drinks a huge amount of confidence because some people don't want to drink a short drink. They may be in the mood for a longer drink, or maybe they're in the mood for a shorter drink. That needs to be made as clear as possible on the menu. Now, the obvious thing to do there is use photography, but it goes without saying the photography has to be beautiful. It shouldn't look like a holiday picture of some food in a fast food shop. It should look like beautiful photography of the drinks. The other option is to use something more illustrative. So a drawing or a graphic representation of the final drink and what the drink might look like. So that's from a design perspective. Thank you. In terms of language that we use on menus, then again, we both see quite a lot just lists of ingredients. And the problem with lists of ingredients is people do not necessarily know what all of those ingredients
They can be very overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming, and even things like writing gum rather than sugar syrup can be confusing to some people.
As bartenders, we fall into the trap of assuming knowledge.
Assuming
on the side of our guests.
So, and actually what we know from wine is the way that you actually sell something is you use evocative language, you use adjectives, and adjectives that can be linked to things. So, for example, you know, an adjective could be geographical. So an example would be like Sicilian lemons, or nostalgic, like grandma's apple pie, or sensory, like creamy or sizzling, as examples, or even using brand names like Tanqueray Gin or Smirnoff Vodka, because anchoring a drink to a brand gives people confidence in ordering the drink if they recognize the premium brand that's going along with it. And we know that by doing that, so by moving from just lists of ingredients to really well thought out descriptions that aren't too long, because people aren't going to read it for very long, but are tight and to the point and appealing, that increases the chance that people will order drinks off that menu by about 27%, so almost a third more, which is absolutely worth doing. And we've talked about images. One more thing is legibility, and we've touched on this already actually. Yeah. So just making sure that the text that you use and the background is legible, that it's big enough that people can read from it. And then the final thing is scarcity messaging. And scarcity messaging really is about getting people to think that if they don't order something quickly, then it might run out. Now, what a lot of people do is they do things like over the course of a month, like malt of the month or cocktail of the month. But if your guests visit weekly or even fortnightly, there's no kind of immediate need to purchase. So what works much better is drink for the weekend, or actually linking it seasonally. So you had a suggestion earlier on about making a syrup, or...
Yeah, exactly. You could embrace that seasonality aspect of, let's say, using certain ingredients by just having something for the weekend or the week. Highly seasonal. You use it for a syrup or a tincture or anything like that, and there you go.
And
it goes away next week.
Yeah. And I've also seen done, which is quite nice, where people do pre-batch drinks, and they make so many, and the worry I think was at one time that if they didn't make enough then they would run out. Actually what they've done is they've just made that part of their scarcity message. We're going to do 20 old fashions, all pre-batch. Once they're gone, they're gone. And they're almost some of the first things that they sell. So before we move on, I've got a couple of questions actually that people have asked, which we could take a stab at. So, how much should be said proportionately to the cost of the cocktail? I guess they're asking there kind of what's a good margin?
It really depends on the nature of the venue. It's usually 70-30.
Yeah, usually 70-30.
It's usually 70-30,
yeah, as a rough ratio.
With a grain of salt, as a rough ratio, exactly.
Yeah, as a rough ratio. How long does the coffee last when kept in the fridge?
Not that long. The flavor does change, but it's marginal. Don't worry that much about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll take one more. So do we have a definition on how many cocktails should be in a menu? Sorry. Do we have a definition of how many cocktails on the menu should be aperitif, digestifs, or all day?
Again, it depends mainly on your audience and also the nature of the venue.
Yeah, and I guess that comes back to making sure that when you are designing a menu, you're designing it on what your guests want.
Yeah.
You're not designing it on what you like.
Exactly. That should be the number one consideration.
Yeah,
what
absolutely.
the guests like.
Okay, so we're going to do. I'm going to ask you another question actually, and you can write in and let us know what you think. So tell us about some seasonal ingredients that you've got in your city. Now, bear in mind that we're going to take a rough shot at this. Tell us about some seasonal ingredients in your city, and then we are going to try and give you some ideas at the end of how you might want to use them.
We'll try our best. If it's too exotic, we haven't worked with it. Sorry in advance.
You can write in and we'll write back.
Yeah.
Whilst you're doing that, Marios, I think you've got one more drink to take us.
Yes, one final drink. It's the Brambo. One of the most popular and most delicious drinks coming from the 80s, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure you know a lot about it.
Don't make
because I
comments
wasn't born in
age.
the 80s, technically speaking. So, we're gonna start by adding the ingredients directly into this double old-fashioned glass. So we need quite a chunky, big, old-fashioned glass, or rocks glass, if you will. This one is gonna be built on crushed ice. So the crushed ice takes more space in a glass. That's why we need more. That's why we need a bigger glass. Excuse me.
Yep.
And also, you could shake it, but you would add loads of dilution, and then that's a consideration you need to take into account when you're using crushed ice. So I'm just going to build everything directly into the glass. I'm going to start with our sugar syrup. In this case, I'm using 10 ml. But this thing, it's quite temperamental. And it has to do with the liqueur that we're using. We're using a liqueur called crème de mûre, which is quite inconsistent when it comes to how sweet or how sour it is. So essentially that liqueur always dictates the recipe.
Okay.
And based on that, let's say information, how sweet your liqueur is, you'll adjust your recipe adding less lemon or more sugar syrup or less sugar syrup. Yeah, makes sense?
Yep, makes sense.
Awesome. So, in this case, and give me a second to rinse my measure. In this case, we're only going to be adding 10 ml of sugar syrup. There we go.
Super.
So that's the sweet agent of the drink, and now we need something sour to balance this sweet flavor. I'm going to be using some nice fresh lemon juice. It makes all the difference to use fresh lemon juice. And I'm going to use 20 ml. There we go. 20 ml of lemon juice.
Yep.
Fantastic. And then I'm going to go for the gin, and I'll leave the liqueur as the last ingredient, so I can show you a little trick that we do with Bramble. I'm sure you know it. So 50 ml, or actually 45 ml of Tanqueray. And now it's time to add loads of crushed ice.
Okay. Now it could be argued that this is not really a winter drink, a seasonal drink.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Blackberries are not famous for being grown during the winter.
Yeah.
However, it's always nice to have like a bestseller or something that people love in your, let's say, seasonal menu as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can also, let's say, add a seasonal garnish to it, which we're going to do later.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. So the next step is to get a bar spoon and make sure we stir it like that, up and down, to make sure that we dilute it slightly, and that our drink, making sure that our drink is nice and cold and palatable. Yeah.
Sure.
So I'm going to be adding more crushed ice to imitate that kind of snow cone, let's say, look. There we go. And as a final step, drizzle 15 ml of crème de mûre, which again is a blackberry liqueur. And the way we do that is we do it slowly on top of the drink. So we create that beautiful bleeding effect that the Bramble is famous for. There we
Super.
go.
Okay, and garnish?
For garnish, I'll use a blackberry, of course. It ties in with the other ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
And a beautiful lemon wedge. There we go. Fantastic. And to add a Christmassy feel, a Christmassy visual appeal to it, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of icing sugar on top. And voila, that's how you have a Christmassy Bramble.
Okay,
Yeah?
cool. Very good. Very good. Okay, I'll have a little taste. Very good.
Amazing.
Okay, so are you going to try?
Sure.
Okay, so the final part of our kind of principles, if you like, and actually it's the one that I think is the nicest one to talk about, is something called the pain of paying. And in order to work this out, researchers took people, put them in MRI scanners, and they got them to buy things with their own money, and they looked at their brain, and what they found was that when you buy something with your own money, the same part of your brain lights up when you feel physical pain, just like when you spend money. So you do actually feel some kind of physical pain by spending money. Now, I'm from Yorkshire, so this has been well known to us for plenty of years, but there are things that you can do to mitigate this effect, okay? And we'll just run through them really quickly. So the first thing is you take away the currency symbol. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it works. You can get people to spend on average 12% more by just removing, I'm not sure if you can see it on here, but just removing the currency symbol.
How crazy is that?
So that could be the pound sign or the dollar sign or the euro or whatever it might be. So that will be our first tip. Unless you're trying to draw attention to how cheap you are, in which case you might want to leave it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one aspect. Another aspect is kind of like the psychological view of how many numbers are actually in the price. Now, I remember when I was growing up, rather than seeing £10 written as a 10 with 2 zeros, you'd see 9.99.
99, yeah.
Now, no one's stupid. Everyone knows that that's 1p or 1 cent difference. But that's not actually the psychological thing that affects you. The psychological thing that affects you is seeing 4 digits, 10.00, to seeing 3.
Yeah.
9.99. It's smaller, and actually that's what has the psychological effect. So with that in mind, actually you could go one step further, take off the pennies altogether and just write 11 or 10 or 9, and it has the same effect. So that's psychological pricing. And then the final one here is prices not in columns. So this is kind of linked in a little way to randomizing the order and anchoring, but rather than having prices just in one column, which kind of encourages people to make the column of prices the decision-making factor.
Yeah.
What's much better to do is actually include the price either next to the product or at the end of the description, because it makes people make a much more considered choice around what they want to drink rather than choosing a drink just basically on the price. So we've got some more questions, I believe, which we could try and answer. So in terms of fruits, or seasonal ingredients, Lewis has said passion fruit. So what will we do with passion fruit?
I'm not entirely sure where in the world it's produced. I know it's produced in various different places, so I can't say where it's seasonal and where it's not. What I can say is that when you get them, open the package and leave them out for a while until they get drinkly. That means they're more mature and have more flavor.
Okay, there you go. Good tip. Okay, we've got a comment here from Briege saying Sevillian marmalade. Marmalade from Seville, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is a product that has already been processed, and it doesn't really matter if it's in season or not, other than the actual appeal of the season. Doesn't really make any difference.
Okay, I'm going to give you.
It's stabilized. It's consistent. Yeah.
I'm going to give you a broad one.
Yeah.
So Hillary has said coconut, melon, blackberry, and mango. It's quite a choice.
In one drink.
I've got no idea. Maybe just pick one.
Coconut and blackberry. Blackberry, I know that at least in the UK, it tends to be at its peak time during summer and early autumn.
Okay.
So you could do that.
Okay, and if you've got any more questions, then write in, and we can take a more considered view and try and write back to you. So
maybe do a little bit of research if something is too exotic or something we haven't worked with before.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so just a couple of reminders as to what we've covered. So within the session, with the kind of principles that we've talked about, one of the key ones was choice overload, and we talked about championing one drink, and we talked about creating a social norm. We talked about the order effect, so randomizing the order of pricing and anchoring with a high number. We talked about how the menu looks and reads, so using inspiring images, using more adjectives that are descriptive and evocative language. And we talked about scarcity messaging. And then finally, we talked about the pain of paying. So removing currency signs, rounding up to the nearest whole number, and also taking prices out of columns. And these are all ways that then tap into people's likelihood that they choose in System 1. They choose in this automatic way, undecided, can't really decide, give them a selection that you really want to sell, so it doesn't matter to you which one they pick, but then they hone in really quickly and make a really quick, easy choice, rather than defaulting to their regular thing, which is not necessarily the what you want them to do when you're on bar, because you want your offer to really stand out, not for them to just default.
All of these tips showcase how much of a power we have over, influencing the choices of our guests.
Sure, and people want to be taken on a journey, don't they, and given an experience, and this is all part of that turtle offer. So that's it from us. It's quite a whirlwind, that one. It's all that we've got time for today. You can absolutely continue the conversation with us on diageobaracademy.com, or on Facebook, or on Instagram, or on Twitter. If you haven't already, you can opt into the newsletter. It comes out monthly. The content is really rich, really great. They tap into industry leaders to write articles, give tips and tricks. It's really good. We will also post details of the next webinar there for you to join us with. You'll get a PDF of the menu if you've signed in, and you'll also get a link to download a certificate that you can use to print out as a record, if you like, of attending our little session here. So I'm sure you want to say a quick something, but thank you from me. Thanks for joining us.
And for the people in the audience that haven't happened to watch the previous webinars, go click on them, watch them. They're all on the website. Go on our social media as well. Follow us on Instagram. Thank you for watching.
Thanks very much.
Cheers.